Hello, everyone. I'm going to be doing my Pixar tier list today. Hello, Nickzilla. How you doing? So yeah, through the past week now, I have actually took it upon myself. More like I just felt compelled to watch all of the Pixar movies in a row from the historic beginning to the historic end, or latest, whatever released recently, which is Luca. So from Toy Story to Luca, I've decided I'm gonna watch all of these, and then I was gonna do like a tier list. I actually thought about that in the middle of it, because I wasn't really necessarily thinking, oh, this would be a great fodder for a stream or something, but I figured this might help me unwind, chat a little bit, do podcast-esque ASMR for whoever deems it worthy. God, this song goes on forever, doesn't it? So yeah, yeah. Everyone, I hope everyone's doing all right. Yeah, I watched a bunch of Pixar movies, and I can't really say it was a slog. It wasn't really like it wasn't something I had to power through. It was just something that it was kind of an easy to get through. There's not really a lot of Pixar movies in comparison to the library of a lot of other studios. Say if I had to go through the Disney sequels or something, or the Disney library itself, you know, which I did over the holiday. I was watching, not necessarily all the animated Disney movies, but quite a few. So, but every once in a while I like to marathon through stuff and kind of give my opinions. And I don't really have any, like hard-hitting commentary or critique. I guess I figured, hey, why not just discuss what I think is the best and what is the downright worst, and what my favorites are.
Wait a sec, weren't you here before?
Okay. J-Man Jibbiday, I don't know if you're a real person. Hopefully I have that thing moderating my channel. Whatever it is. How do I find out who's moderating? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, so I do have SiriBot. Alrighty. Goody, goody, goody. Anyway, yes. So let's start this tier, and we are going to start with, of course, Toy Story. I'm going to put that in the great category. It's not my favorite. I really think it's a wonderful movie. It basically started this whole mess. Looking back on it, it's, I can't tell you how interesting it was to see the evolution of the look of Pixar movies since. And it has certainly gotten a long way. Not to say that the first one wasn't good as well, it's just you can clearly see the difference. And I'm not going to necessarily get a docket points for how it looked and the technology at the time, because certainly it was more story than anything. And I feel that's what it was in the beginning. It was like, it wasn't so much that it was a CG movie, it was just like a really, really well made plot. A lot of problems, though, at the beginning. I know there were a lot of different story elements. Joe Ranft, obviously MVP of Pixar up until his death in Cars, and I'll talk about that later. Bug's Life. I don't know if I necessarily want to say faves. I do really, really like it. I know a lot of people don't. But I'm not talking about what other people think. I'm going to just say, I love A Bug's Life. I love the characters, the world building. I know it's not a super, how would I say, original storyline. But if you watch any of these movies, none of them are really that original. They all took from something. But for a second movie on a studio that was really trying to one-up themselves on the first one, I think A Bug's Life was pretty damn good. And honestly, I'm gonna put that up ahead of Toy Story, because while I still really like Toy Story, I will say that A Bug's Life really honestly is one of the higher tier movies. Then, let's see, Toy Story 2, first sequel in their third movie. Oh, they're not going to touch A Bug's Life. They're not going to make a sequel of Bug's Life. A lot of the people who made it have moved on. Moved on, I put in quotation marks. And I highly doubt they're going to want to touch it. Let's see. What other films had that storyline? Oh, well, it was definitely Samurai 7. God, Toy Story 2, where would I put that? I really, really do like it, but what I honestly feel... Okay, I'm going to put it in an okay. So Toy Story 2, listen, I still really like. I think what hinders it comparatively to the first two is that it definitely shows a struggle of storyline. Like, this seems almost like it was an obligation to make. Pixar as a studio felt... I'm very certain that they wanted to just do more movies. Like, they wanted to do one-and-dones. But because Disney wanted to do the sequel stuff, I feel like they were kind of pressured into wanting to do it themselves. And the original idea was wrought with so many problems that they really had a limitation on what they could do and what they wanted to do with it. It definitely expands on the whole Toy Story series, but the liar reveal trope. Okay, if you're gonna talk about tropes, every single fucking one of these movies has that trope. So if you're going to dock points on A Bug's Life for it, you're gonna have to dock the points for every single movie. Okay? I'm just gonna put that on. I'm just gonna lay that law down there right now. Besides, this is my tier list, so anyway, Toy Story 2 has, I think it's the silliest. It was definitely like the writers and the board artists and the creators could play around with it a little bit more, but that also kind of shows a lack of story focus, in which there are so many references in this movie. Like, the jokes are all based off of something. Like, there's the 2001 reference, there's the Jurassic Park reference, tons of jokes that just kind of like, I think are fine and they're funny, and I do love reference jokes. This one, I think it's a hit on it because it just feels so rough. And also given the fact that this movie was almost lost. The entire movie was almost lost to time had an artist not kept pretty much all of the data on their own computer, which is, I find that really weird why they had it. Probably like a couple people had data or files, but yeah, this Toy Story 2 almost got dumped. And I don't know what that would have done to the studio or to Disney or Pixar. I don't know, but either way, that seems like a really, really interesting backstory to this. And I honestly think because it was given such a troubled production, it kind of, you can kind of feel it. So, yeah. Monsters, Inc. I am going to put it up ahead as a great. Not a fave. It used to be a fave. I will say it used to be a like, I would go to this movie constantly. And I do really love it. It is very high up there on great. It is above Bug's Life and above Toy Story right now. Monsters, Inc. is probably one of the most heartfelt, most interesting, most high-concept, well-executed high-concept movie that the Pixar library has given. And I loved it then. I still love it now. Another thing that I want to bring up is that the reason why I watch these movies again is like I wanted to see how many of them still held up to me. And some of them that there's going to be a couple surprises where it's like I used to hate this movie, and then all of a sudden I like it, and then you're going to also see like I used to like this movie, now I don't. So, but yeah, Monsters, Inc. is like fantastic. A lot of heart, a lot of creativity. What was another thing that I wanted to mention about Pixar movies is that, oh, yes, all of these movies, I'm gonna, like, if I have logic arguments, I'm gonna just toss them out. My sole thought process about these movies is if the story is fun and it makes sense and I'm entertained by it. I know that I do a lot of questioning where it's like, oh, the world of Cars wouldn't make sense because who built this and whatnot. No, it's more, do they show that this is a fun story, and can you watch this and still believe, yeah, it doesn't matter. That's going to happen a lot because I've been watching so many of these movies, and if you really pick apart a Pixar movie, none of it is going to make sense. None of it is really in logic. A lot of stuff is just kind of like left to, just coincidence. There have been so many moments where I've actually seen characters just reach out behind them and there'll just magically appear something. That's cartoon logic. I love it. No one really makes a big fuss about it. And I'm sure if there have been people who have nitpicked it like crazy, they would probably dock the movie points. But for me, it's like, nobody really cares about that stuff. As long as the story makes sense, you could do something fun with that. Alright. Finding Nemo. Watching... Oh God, I think this is probably the movie that I've seen the most in my life. I am going to put this beneath... I'm going to still put this in the great category. Because, one, I've watched this movie so many times in my life, and I still enjoy it. I know everything that happens in this movie. I think it's kind of overused a lot, but I find myself still laughing at a lot of stuff in the movie. I find myself quoting stuff. It has a lot of great characters, a lot of cute moments in it, a really heartwarming story. So the reason why it's below Toy Story is because I still really have a lot of fondness for the concept of Toy Story. I love aquatic life. And Finding Nemo is just very... It hits the right spots. So it hits the right spots, and I sincerely still appreciate the movie. It's still in the great category. I can't really put any more reasoning behind why it's here. I know that my personal opinions of it. I will still choose A Bug's Life over Finding Nemo. And also, one thing that that a lot of these movies have is the annoying sidekick character, where it's like, now don't get me wrong, I love Dory. Dory's a great character. One thing that really grates on me is the whole, the character is doing wrong stuff. And, in a way, they recognize it. They know that what they're doing is wrong. But it's like, sometimes that also makes the main character look a little bit too douchey. Where it's like they will constantly be like, they're the straight man character, and they are trying to put reasoning in with the dumb character, but really all they're doing is going like saying the character's name and going like and repeating stuff. I don't know. I guess that's like my only nitpick about it, but it's really not a huge deal. Incredibles. Now, okay. this used to be a favorite. And I love Brad Bird movies. He's a fantastic storyteller. When I found out the guy who made Iron Giant was going to do a Pixar movie, when I was a kid, that blew my mind, and I was like, I am going to see this so many times, and I did. I saw this in theaters like more than I can count. I watched Iron Giant probably 5 to 6 times when it was still in theaters. And I didn't see The Incredibles that much, but I do know that I saw it quite a few times. And mainly it was because like I was okay with watching it again because my friends didn't. So there's a lot of stuff in The Incredibles that I just have memorized now. You know what? I'm still going to put it in faves. I'm still going to put this in faves because it's still dated in some aspects, but I think it really still holds up. It's really... every character gets a moment to shine in it. And then they do get moments to shine together. So, yeah, I'm going to put this in one of my faves. It's probably not going to stay on the top faves very long because I still have some I'm going to pick out. So, yeah. So far, we've only had one sequel to talk about, and that's honestly a good thing. But now I gotta talk about Cars. Now, okay, you would think I hate this movie, and I think it's mediocre or boring. No, I'm gonna put this underneath Toy Story 2 and okay, because I hate to admit I still love the movie. The more you watch it, the less it makes sense. It's like, well, I should say, the more sequels that are made of a movie, the less the logic of the original makes sense. But this one was just kind of like, it was fun, and also I don't hate it. It is the movie that killed my favorite board artist of all time, Joe Ranft. But Cars is okay. I've never really said that I've hated it. I've never really said that it was a movie that should be all out destroyed. No, I think it's over. I think they oversaturated it after the fact that it was such a success. And I don't really think it was such a success. It was just, it was an explosion of marketing genius. Make a bunch of toy cars and base a movie around that. And honestly, it's still strong to this day. The third movie has been out for like, what, 5 years ago? The movie, it's still making a lot of traction in merchandise. And I hate to admit it, but it's a fairly okay movie with a really fantastic experience at Disneyland, or California Adventure. The ride is great. It's like Transformers. First off, I thought the first Transformers was okay. And I thought it was fun. Then it kept going, and then the fun started to dwindle. It makes a fantastic ride. The ride is one of the best experiences I could ever I could ever suggest for like a theme park. But I mean, watching it again, I was like, oh yeah, it still holds up. There's some things that I find annoying with it. Mater isn't really one of them. Mater isn't really one of the annoying parts of the movie. They actually utilize him fairly well. The first movie, Mater is like, he's okay. He's the bumbling sidekick. He's the friend that actually you manage to warm up to. But one of the most annoying things about it, I feel, is the fact that it has too many characters that you don't really do anything with. And I guess that is also a problem with A Bug's Life, but on A Bug's Life, it's like you have a bunch of characters that kind of like fulfill a purpose to do something. Here, Cars just kind of like, you have like an empty town, and you need to fill it up with citizens. You have to make it alive, and then each character basically becomes... fills it? Like, you see a need and you fill it? At least that's how I think about it. Otherwise, the characters really don't serve any purpose. They're just there. And they kind of disappear in later movies when you watch. And none of that really has to do with the fact that, like, you know, some of the cast has passed away. It mainly has to do with the fact that you can't really do anything with them other than these are cute characters we need to fill up for the franchise in order to sell more toys. You know what I mean? But it's a good story. I do like a lot of the characters. I do think it has heart. I think it's very severely high concept that they managed to pull off well, which is something that I always have liked about Pixar, is that if they ever have a concept that is way high concept, they make sure that they can do it and do it well. And that's all part of problem solving in production. Which brings me to Ratatouille, which I'm just going to put up in faves right now because this is one of my all-time favorite movies. And I thought about this. Most of the movies after Ratatouille, I feel, have become more and more analogies about the animation industry and the people in it. Ratatouille, it's about culinary, you know, it's about food and cooks and chefs and everything like that. I watched this movie and everything about it is an analogy for the animation industry. It is an analogy for the critics and the box office. It's about the people who aren't artists but are basically consumers of the arts. The chefs who are the artists. The people that in an animation industry who have to deal with certain politics and you know, everything about it. I love this movie. I don't think the original director, if I remember correctly, I can't remember who the original director was, but it wasn't working out, and then they got Brad Bird to fix it, and there's definitely a lot of Brad Bird in this movie, but I don't necessarily want to give him full credit on the movie because it really wasn't his baby. The Incredibles was definitely his, you know, his brainchild. He definitely wanted to put as much as himself in that movie as possible. Ratatouille is something that he came in to kind of like improve on, and I think a lot of it had to do with his own expertise about, you know, what his experiences were in the industry and brought it to the table of this movie. And you know, logic aside, again, I'm not going to put logic into this. If it makes sense in the movie, it's going to make sense in story-wise. So I love everything about it. I love the characters. The only thing that I don't like, and the only thing that I can say, even though this is one of my top favorite movies, I am always going to look at the "This Is Me" intro and think, if they had no narration in this whatsoever, would this work? And there are some moments in the middle and in the end where Remy is basically narrating like stuff that goes on, and it is sort of trying to fit what is it emotion in there. But honestly, I do think that the beginning of this movie could be told by, just by trusting the audience. And I don't know if that was a decision by Brad. I don't know if that was a decision by other people at Pixar. Either way, or maybe they didn't have time. Who knows? I don't really necessarily know the entire backstory about it. I probably could look into it. That would be interesting to kind of look into. But Ratatouille, definitely one of my top favorites. Definitely one of my top favorites. All right. So now we are in the era of movies that Lasseter is really buddying up with Miyazaki. There's this huge influence of Japanese animation coming into Pixar. Pixar really, really, really is desperately, and I really think it's Ratatouille. It's all the fault of Ratatouille. Ratatouille did. It almost feels like the movie wanted to be something that it wasn't, which was like, this is not a kids movie. This is definitely has a lot of sophistication to it. Kids can enjoy it. Kids could like it. Kids could see the rat and be really impressed by it. But all of the other things, like the politics and the narration and the story narration, by the way, not the literal narration, the elements of it, the just adult nature of basically, it would make sense to a kid, but if you really pay attention to the dialogue, a kid would not care. A kid would not care about what's going on. They just need to know that someone's in trouble, problem solving, etc., etc. I really think Ratatouille started that. Why not The Incredibles? Incredibles was up there in sophistication, definitely. But Ratatouille really started to create a bar for them, and now they wanted to raise that bar, and now we're in the era where Lasseter feels that, hey, we are now artists, quote unquote, and we need to treat our industry like the serious artistry it is. And then we got a movie like WALL-E. Where do I put WALL-E? Now, here's my conundrum here. WALL-E, I really thought when it came out, I thought WALL-E was so boring. I feel like I was lied to when I watched it. I thought I was gonna get like a very what is it? Like a pantomime, no dialogue, not like a love story with robots. I would have liked that, and then it kind of turned into a narration about the destruction of the Earth and its overconsumption of overconsumption, to the point where the Earth is now destroyed, and they have left Earth, and there's no plant life or any sustainable life on Earth whatsoever. It became an environmental film. Now, here's the thing. I find that watching it again over the week, I honestly feel like this is a much more important story now than it was then. Probably I didn't think about it that much then, but now I'm definitely thinking about it. However, I don't think it necessarily is bad because of it. I honestly think that there are still a lot of elements to the story that I can't really grasp. Like the fat human people, as soon as they come in, I like when I was watching this, I was just like, okay, this is where I'm going to tune out. Well, that wasn't necessarily true. I did kind of enjoy that element. I feel like if this movie was about an alien planet that basically overconsumed and then left the planet, and then they're aliens, not humans, would it make as much sense? But then I thought, like, well, then you're going to have to take away all of the Earth elements of it. You have to basically suspend your disbelief for a lot of stuff. Like, how could people sustain themselves for 600 years on a spaceship? Either way, listen. Again, it's not about logic. You can question it all you want. It's all about if it's a good story. And also, I love all the little robot characters. I'm going to put this at the bottom of great. If I did this tier... if I did this tier without watching these movies and did this even a week ago, this would have been a mediocre. But since I watched it again and now I have like my sensibilities have changed, WALL-E has now made it into the back of the great line because I still love WALL-E. I still think it's a beautiful, beautiful love story. It's a believable romance between characters that you would not necessarily believe, and maybe it's because WALL-E reminds me of a tiny Johnny Five. I really love WALL-E, and I love a lot of elements to it. I love the almost apocalyptic feel of it. And by the end, it doesn't really feel like, there really isn't any hope to everything. It really feels like there's a chance of survival and life. I appreciate it. All right, now we're at Up. Again, we are still in the Miyazaki phase of Pixar, I feel. How can I explain Up? And watching it again, I still think it's a nice story. It has a beautiful, beautiful moment. It is... and listen, if you're a fan of Up, remember this is just my tier. I'm putting it in mediocre. I feel like Up is a great 5-minute short film. I like, okay, so maybe 10 minutes. Like, there is a moment in the movie where I feel like you could probably tell this story in a very condensed way, but I just hate this because it's like most of Pixar's movies are about the main character learning a lesson in life, but they need another character in order to show it. And the events and the stuff that happen in this movie are it's such a weird journey that I'm not even, but I don't like it. The thing is like, there are many movies that you have the characters go through an adventure, and like stuff will happen in between that adventure, and you will kind of get like, I enjoy the stuff that's happening. But this one, it's like I need something more than talking dogs and a bird and a chubby like little kid that follows an old man around. There are parts of this movie that I really like. I do love the old man fight. But I can't. I'm really struggling. I was struggling with it while I was watching it, and I was like struggling with it when I first watched it. When I saw it in theaters, I was just kind of like, I feel like, is this the era where Pixar becomes too, quote unquote, sophisticated? Like too, like it feels like it's bigger than it really is, and that's what I felt it for WALL-E, but I really felt it with Up. Especially back then. I have a bigger appreciation for WALL-E now than I do for Up. Watching Up makes me feel there's no real true character connection. It just really feels like the characters kind of forced to enjoy each other. Like the kid, Russell, the kid, is like, seems so like too annoying, you know? Where it's like, I don't really think there was a true moment in which the main character could really connect with him. I mean, I guess there was that one moment where it was like he was talking about his dad, but at the same time, it's like, that almost seems so forced. Seems too. It seems too convenient that moment happened. I don't know. I really tried with this one. I really tried. I didn't have any. When I watched it, it's like I know that I had some preconceived notions about it, because like I know everyone loves it for the beginning scene, which is really touching and tender and very like emotional. I feel like that's the only thing anyone remembers about this movie. And but everyone forgets like the rest of it. It's just an adventure that kind of like falls flat. So while there's some moments to Up that I can really appreciate, I still just don't really like it all that much. And you know, let me think. Toy Story 3. I kind of feel the same about Toy Story 3. I feel like there's a lot of forced emotional moments. It's very emotional. When you have grown up with Toy Story and seen how far it went from the first one to the second one to the third one, there's a deep emotional connection with this, which I feel is almost manipulative. But there are also moments in this movie where I just kind of feel like it was convenient for the storyline where... the story as a whole is basically, what if what if the toys went to a daycare? And that was like the story about it. I'm going to put this underneath okay. I'm going to put this below Cars, but above Up, because I still like Toy Story, and I don't want to give it too many... I don't want to give it any points for being what it is, which is Toy Story. It's got characters that you really appreciate and enjoy. I see viewers leaving now because they're... They don't really like my decisions on most of these movies. They're probably getting pissed with me. And also there's that moment, and that moment where they're almost gonna die. I didn't feel anything because I knew it wasn't gonna happen. I knew they weren't gonna die. I knew they would. I think it would have been a bold choice if they all died and went to a toy heaven. That would have been... But, no, they're not going to do that because it's a franchise, and they need to keep these characters alive because they would have like a Transformers the movie on their hands, the animated movie, not the Bay one. I just thought that move was like manipulative and really, I wouldn't say poor taste, because I think the more emotional moment is when Andy hands off his toys to Bonnie. That moment actually made me tear up, because that's the moment where I actually feel like that is the more emotional connection to this, not the they're going to suddenly die or something. Because to me it's just like when I'm watching that, it's like I know the tension, I know the understandable tension that this brings, but it's not grasping me because I know they're not going to die. It's just trying to figure out how it is they're going to get out of there, and which they're going to get out of, and eventually they did. Spoilers, but yeah, there are a lot of funny moments in it. It's not as funny as the second one, because I think they're trying to grasp more of the... Also, it's very tense and serious as well. There's a lot of... The thing about Toy Story movies is that there is an element of tension and seriousness to it suddenly. Where, I guess they wanted to make it a little bit more suspenseful. That's the word I'm looking for. Because there's a lot of like sneaking around, trying to figure out what's going on, especially with Lotso and all of his cronies and all that. And also Lotso's motivations, while understandable, I don't know if it really connects with him taking over the daycare. If I felt like maybe Lotso had like more of a motivation where it was like he felt like all of the toys, like all the new toys that came in were basically his competition, maybe. But even then, it wouldn't really make sense. Either way, anyway, Toy Story 3 is like on the bottom of okay. Cars 2, I'm putting in boring. I watched it again. There are moments to it where I was just I understand the whole point of it, where it's like characters think Mater is a screw up, and then he has a moment where he's like... There are moments in this movie where it's like, I just feel like all of a sudden Mater is smart. Where it's like he gets it, but that was back then. But now it's like, I understand it, because they established that he is a mechanical genius. Like, he's an idiot savant. Like, he knows he knows like the ins and outs of, or the innards of a car, so he would know the motor parts and everything. So it would make sense that he would basically have that sort of smart moment at the end where he understands, oh, that's what it is, and that's, I get that now. It doesn't really seem like he's an idiot and then all of a sudden becomes smart and saves the day. No, I think they treat him too much. He is so goddamn stupid at the beginning of this, to the point of like, this is insulting. This is like insultingly bad. And I know there are people like this. This should honestly make Americans feel bad about themselves, because this is how they react in foreign countries. This is how they look. So I mean, this is how. And I didn't like that. I just felt like it, and people, and knowing audiences, when they look at that, I feel like they would almost kind of look at that the wrong way, like, oh man, that's so funny, he's so dumb. It's like, this is really, really insensitive and stupid and callous. There's a shot that I actually posted on my Twitter where Mater comes in kabuki makeup, and that is like cultural appropriation, like 101, do not do. Maybe it was like less insensitive at the year it came out. When did Cars 2 come out? Let's take a look at a moment for that. 2011. So 10 years ago. 10 fucking years ago. I sincerely feel like it that wouldn't fly now, honestly, but I gotta say that the more I watched Cars 2, the more it's like I kind of remembered things about it when I first watched it, and I just feel the same way, sadly. Some moments, there are some things where it's just like, it didn't make sense to me then, but it makes sense now, but now it's like, I can definitely say without a doubt, Cars 2 is one of the worst sequels, one of the worst storylines that Pixar has done since they started. And I hate to say that, because I still do appreciate the first one. It's just like, and I'm not going to blame it for being a sequel. They've handled sequels well. Toy Story 2 being like the only other sequel, well, Toy Story 3, I mean, Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3 were the only other two movies that they've done as sequels before Cars 2. And they should have known better. And maybe they just thought, like, hey, we're being a little bit too serious. We need to, like, dial it back and just make stuff, like, silly and slapsticky. This almost felt like it was unnecessarily slapstick. Too much Mater. Too much Mater. Which brings me to Brave. Brave, I'm going to put... Now, okay. Alright, I'm going to put Brave on the top of the okay list. I could have put it at the end of great, but here... Okay, no, you know what? I'm going to put Brave on the end of great, okay? And here's my reasoning. I don't fucking care about Brother Bear. And I know that a ton of people, like, compare it to that. Like, it's Mother Bear. That was the joke. It was Mother Bear. What I'm going to say right now, though, Brave, honestly, is a good story. It's not fantastic, but it is a good story. Now, and this is like, they were trying to be pinnacle, like Miyazaki Ghibli movie. And in the beginning, they succeeded. Halfway through this movie, up to the halfway point, I feel like there was a definitive good story, good conflict. Characters are fantastic. I love the concept of this movie. However, I think okay, no, you know what? I'm going to put this back in the front of okay, because again, and I'm flip-flopping on this. I know, but I think I would have loved to have seen what the original director would have brought to this film. I would love to have seen what was her name? Original Brave director. Brenda Chapman. Okay, so she was initially the head director of this before Mark Andrews came in and kind of manned it up. I will say, like, this movie is very mansplained. And it turns into basically a typical Disney princess movie. And I do understand a lot of points to that. She directed Prince of Egypt. No shit. Really? I don't... You know what's really sad about me is that I don't really look at a lot of... outside of Brad Bird, I don't really look into who directed an animated movie. Which kind of like is a bad thing for me. I really should kind of have more knowledge about that sort of stuff. But I really wanted to see her original vision of this, because I feel like something's missing from this movie that probably would have made it more of a strong woman movie, because up to this point, Pixar has been a man's world. I'm not going to mince words. I am not going to pretend that it isn't, because it honestly is. Pixar is a very misogynist studio. It has been. It doesn't present itself that way, but they do not put any focus on female characters. And that's a shame. It's a huge dent on them. I really would honestly love to see them have a more feminine approach to a movie, but the reason why they don't do it is because they're so fucking afraid to alienate their audience? ? When pretty much like probably like 2/3 of their audience is female. I honestly would love to see a movie that has a more feminine approach to it. They still have yet to have done. I think the closest one that they've done is Inside Out. And Inside Out is about parenting. It has absolutely nothing to do about women in general. Possibly Incredibles 2, maybe, but only because... Well, I'll get to that point. Anyway, what I'm just saying is that the red panda turning red? Oh, really? Well, I guess I'm looking forward to that. I hope that one turns out pretty good. So, we'll see what happens. But again, Brave was like a huge misstep. I still like it. I still think it's a fine movie. It's not perfect. It's really not perfect, and I don't really think that should be a problem for it, because it's a beautiful movie, has gorgeous characters. I just feel like there could have been a more elevating nature to the protagonist's feelings. And, you know, I watched a whole documentary, or what do you call them? Like a YouTube thesis, or whatever it is. Video essay. Yes, video essay. It's like watching a video essay about the explanation of why something works and why it doesn't. And it's like, I understand every single point. I'm not going to say that I agree with everything. I'm not going to say I'm going to disagree with everything. I will say that Brave was half good, and that makes it okay, because I do really, honestly, when it comes down to the balance, I like more of it than I don't like of it. So, really, Brave, if it wasn't mishandled by its misogyny, I really think it would have been a great movie. And they probably should have trusted. They probably should have just gone with their instincts. But unfortunately, they didn't. They thought, like, oh, this isn't going to work. Why? Because most of the people who run the show are men. And you know what? That's... whatever. I can't... Monsters University, I'm going to put in as... reason why I have Monsters University as a favorite above Monsters, Inc., which is, like, on my top of the greats. No, it wasn't Nostalgia Chick. It was someone else. I can't remember their name. But they did a really good video essay about Brave, and I thought it was really well written, well thought out. A lot of it I just kind of didn't really think was that important. But again, you know, it probably is different in someone else's eyes. Anyway, Monsters University, I'm going to put up on my faves, because even though it's a prequel, I love everything about the world building of Monsters, Inc. I love the world building of the show. It's not a good show, unfortunately, but I still love that they kind of still delve into the realm of the Monsters world. Monsters University, I just appreciate because it is basically Pixar doing a college film, like Porky's and what's that other movie? Anyway, like it's very 80s, and I kind of liked that. I thought it was very cute, and I thought it was and also it was basically an advertisement to not go to college. People don't seem to realize that it's not so much glorifying universities and colleges. It is basically glorifying that there are other ways to get to the top. There's other... Animal House, that's the movie. Thank you so much, Space Alien. But it's like... I really thought that was a bold choice, where it's like it wasn't so much that they failed, it was more... I guess it's just maybe like a personal thing for me, because like I did go to college. I didn't like it. I don't think I don't think it was necessary, unfortunately, but I was never told that college wasn't necessary. You know what I mean? So I honestly felt like it was great because they took the initiative to kind of basically move up from the bottom. And while that's a very capitalistic way of thinking, it's still like, hey, they still achieved their dreams despite the odds and what they knew was the norm. So, I don't know, I I like that a lot about it, and I would say that it is probably one of the better sequels that the series, had. Better sequels that the studio had. Inside Out. Let's see, where am I going to put Inside Out? So I am going to put Inside Out above Bug's Life as a great. I love the high concept of the movie. Everything is well thought out. Everything is it's philosophical. It almost gives like a meaning to how things are. Just you as a human being, and it's like you need to look at the characters as they're also learning what it is to be unified. And it's not so much the story about the characters within. It's basically the story of the girl that they are they're within. And the movie is, like I said before, it's about parenting, which honestly at this point I'm getting kind of tired of parenting movies. And I understand that pretty much 90% of the people working at Pixar now are parents. So it's like you basically write what you know. So they basically, I think this was like a coping mechanism for them to kind of like understand the whole theoretical process of growing up and what it is that what it is to be a parent of a child that is going through adolescence and etc. I do love the characters. I think they were all really they were really, really cute and well performed, and the casting. I mean, listen, the casting on most of Pixar movies is usually spot on, but I feel like for Inside Out, it was probably the best casting out of all of the movies that I've seen. So I do like it. I really think it's visually impressive. It's again, it's all thought out, well thought out, and I don't think it deserves a ride at Disneyland. But anyway, yes. So, The Good Dinosaur. Now, a year ago, when this came out, why did I say a year ago? Okay, so years ago, I would have had this on boring because it kind of was boring. I am going to now put this on above Up, just in terms of mediocre, because I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's really all that great, because it's a Western. It's basically a Western film with dinosaur characters in it. And I know that Pixar loves to play with the high concept notion of if dinosaurs survived, what would they be like? I feel like the TV show Dinosaurs did that a lot better. because when I'm thinking of the dinosaurs didn't survive, so 1 million years later, what, they should have a society. In this, it's just kind of they didn't really necessarily evolve. They just look like bold-legged, weird-looking dinosaurs in a very detailed scenario, which as visually impressive as this movie is, I never really thought about it, because Pixar movies have evolved so gradually that it is hard to basically say what necessarily improved with their technology, and everything just kind of blurs together. This is just another Pixar movie, so but Good Dinosaur is a movie that a lot of people just kind of forget. It's not really amazing, but it does have a lot of heart to it. It's just, God, when I look at Arlo and all the stuff that happens to him, it's like I can't stand looking at his elbows, because they're just like giant bulbs on these legs. But yeah, I think the things that I liked the most about this movie was when he ran into like the crazy a country bumpkin, like Eye of the Storm pterodactyls, and the redneck hick raptors, and the cattle rustling T-Rexes, and I mean, there's also like a crazy Triceratops in there, which I'm assuming is supposed to be Native American. And if that's the case, that's like in poor taste. But those elements of it really kind of sold it to me. Whereas I wish there was more of that. Instead, it's basically a boy and his dog story. It's old Yeller. It's like a boy trying to get back. Like, okay, so I know that I said in the past, like, what did Arlo do to make his mark? He didn't do anything. He basically almost drowned and then moved on. But no, this is the cowboy like mentality of, you have to be strong in this wilderness to survive and get through it without dying, and whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And basically, it's like he's like a kid that like had so much fear, and now he's in the most fearful place, and he has to survive through it. And now he's like stronger. That I understand. So that I got a lot more on my second viewing. And literally, I've only seen this movie 2 times. One when it came out, and second last week. So I feel like there was a lot of stuff that they wanted to do with this movie. They just couldn't really fit it in, because it would bog down with the initial concept of Arlo trying to basically become stronger for his family. That family's still gonna die in the winter, I feel. I still didn't feel strongly about it, even though I appreciated it and I understood it a lot more. I can't really explain much more than that. A Good Dinosaur. Also, the title is really misleading. Doesn't really. I don't know if like the title is misleading to be like, oh, you think that the cave boy owns the dinosaur. Instead, it's the reverse. It's the dinosaur that has the cave boy as a pet. I guess. I just think that was so. The title is so stupid. I sincerely feel it's one of the weaker Pixar movies, and that's a shame, because it really feels like they tried hard with it, but it just didn't come out that way. So I don't know what would have helped it. I really, honestly, usually when I think about a movie, like if I don't think highly about a movie, I think about what could have helped it. And this one, I can't think of anything. And I don't know if it would have been like, maybe if it was more of a comedy, but they really, really, really like they just poured the emotional like fatigue on this entire movie. And I think that's what kind of hinders it more than anything. Finding Dory, I'm going to put on the end of okay, because I've seen this movie so many times. Why is it that I've seen both Finding Nemo movies so often that it's the point where it's just like I don't really know what to say about them? I like them. I think they're okay. I think it's a shame that I don't really have more to say about it. I just feel like, you know what? No, I have to put this on mediocre, like on the top of mediocre, because like no, I shouldn't go back on that. I still think it's on the end of okay. I'm not really that keen on Dory as a character. I do feel for her, and there was like some emotion. I guess I just couldn't really connect with her that much. I was more like upset with it thinking about my dad as a man whose memory was depleting the older he got. It's just that connection kind of hit me. But Dory herself just doesn't. I don't know. There's something about her that is very Mater-ish, where it's like she's charming but also annoying. You know, it's like I both like her and don't like her, but it's like I can't hate her because movies like this manipulate you into thinking like, oh, this character. This is what I hate about a lot of animated movies. They make a character that is annoying as hell, make you hate her along with the main character. And then by the end, they make you feel so bad about hating this character because of their tragic backstory or some sort of emotional cue with their family or something. And then you end up being like, oh, well, now I feel bad and now I should like this character, but I still don't. It's like I tolerate this character now because they emotionally manipulated me to enjoy this character. I felt this with a movie recently. What was it called? Vivo? Where there's a character in there who is so fucking annoying. The little girl character. And it's like the entire time at the beginning, I'm thinking, you know what? They're going to make me like this character by the end of this movie. I bet you anything. And sure enough, they throw you in for a loop with this fucking like emotional like loop-de-loop where it's like, oh, well, now you should feel bad for hating this character because they are actually should be pitied. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about Dory. It's like we're in this like in Finding Nemo. It's like she wasn't the initial focus, so I felt a little bit more appreciative of her character because she was a solution, but she wasn't the solution. She was just like a big help. So with Finding Dory, it's like we now have a focus on a character that I did not necessarily want to follow, and now we have like this backstory where it's just like, oh my god, I feel so bad, and now they're crying, and they're like, I should feel bad for feeling this way. That, you know, it's like, fuck you, Pixar, fuck you. It's like, fuck this emotional manipulation bullshit. That's not fair. Don't do that. but it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen that I bet you anything it's gonna happen in the next movie where it's gonna be like there's gonna be a very annoying character that you're going to really hate, and then by the end of the movie it's gonna be the favorite character because you appreciate them because of their emotional background. Anyway, I'm talking way too much about Finding Dory. Cars 3, I'm gonna put above Brave. Okay? No, you know what? Here's why. Cars 3 is the most adult movie that I like, the most sophisticated adult made movie, animated movie, in which it is basically about knowing when you need to stop and pass along the torch to someone because you're too proud to realize that you have ended. And it's about retirement. It's about retirement, and I feel like this is the movie that made me feel like every single Pixar movie has an element of the animation industry as an analogy within it. And this one definitely felt that. I don't think it would... I think there were moments to it where it was kind of insulting, but at the same time, it's like, by the end, you kind of... There's a little bit more practicality to it. There's like a... There's an emotional understanding about that. I will not say that it is perfect, because there's no way that I can honestly call a Cars movie perfect with a straight face. But I will say that, like, on my second viewing of this movie in my life, I have a deeper appreciation for it because it is really sophisticated. It is not a jokey movie. Mater is barely in it. Thank Christ. After the second one, I think they really realized that too much Mater is a bad thing. But in this movie, it's like they barely even bring him in. It's like he has like probably 3 lines throughout the entire movie. I could be wrong, but honestly, Cars 3, it's like I was actually shocked watching it again how much it really resonated with me, to the point where I was in tears. And I was just like, wow, what the fuck? It really made me, like, confused. I was like, I really think that this was... When this movie came out, at the time it came out, it was not the right time for me to watch it. I think I watch it now, and I think, like, yeah, I really believe that this is some sort of understanding of passing the torch. So I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was good. I put it above Finding Nemo because it was more emotional to me, oddly enough. So that was my surprise of the week, because I really did not see myself looking back on the third sequel of Cars, of all things, and thinking, this is a really good movie. I hated 2. Cars 2 right now is on the spot for the worst movie on this tier list. And yet I have Cars 3 above the first one. Ugh. Coco! I cannot speak highly enough about this movie. It is so fucking emotional. It is above Ratatouille. And I love Ratatouille. I've always said that it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Coco is still on my number 1 because it is so fucking good. It is so well thought out. It is such a creative and very very well thought out, high concept movie that listen, I hate to say that this movie was better than, I don't really hate to say it, but I think when Book of Life came out, it's like, I didn't feel anything for Book of Life. I feel like it was really and there was way too many characters in it. And it's like, I hate to compare it, because like, these are the only two Mexican Day of the Dead movies animated movies that I know about. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough about this movie because it's so touching. It's so, there's so much to it that makes me feel like I have never watched this movie without a dry eye because of that fucking song, Remember Me at the end, the way that it's sung, the way he sings it to his grandmother. Again, it's like, maybe it's connections to my dad, who knows? But such a fucking good movie, such a beautiful. I'm still set to WarioWare. Are you fucking kidding me? No wonder. No, who cares? Anyway, man, I should probably watch Book of Life again to see what I think. But I don't really think my opinion of it would change that much, because I just think it's muddled down so much with too many unnecessary characters. I don't want to go on a tangent here, but yeah, Coco is my number one favorite. I will always have it there, up there as my favorite. I don't think anything that's still coming up will top it, because none of it has made me feel the same way as it did. But man, when this movie came out, speaking of high hopes, I mean, I was looking forward to the movie. I don't think Disney had any faith that this movie would do well, because they put in front of it a Frozen short, not a short, featurette, 20-minute. It was a 20-minute Frozen featurette, to the point where they thought, like, no one's going to watch Coco because of this. They thought they would get butts in seats because of Frozen. No, they lost seats. And then when they re-released the movie without Frozen in front of it, more people went to see it. And now Coco is probably like one of their best movies. I honestly, at least I would hope so, because I cannot speak highly of it, more highly of it than I have. Incredibles 2, I put you know what? I liked it more than the first Incredibles, so it is a favorite of mine. I love the moments with Bob and the child, like when he's like taking care of the kids. Those are some of my favorite moments. It's still a well thought out story, well thought out superhero style thing. The new superheroes are funny. God, it almost makes me wish that there was more Incredibles, but it's probably never gonna be. I don't know. I love the Incredibles too. I love that Helen is more of a focus in the action segment of it, because I feel Mr. Incredible was focused more on the first one, so it was a good role reversal. There's still good elements of like the characters as their own, and then when they're together, it just, it's a good movie. I like it. Toy Story 4. You know what? I found myself kind of dozing off a couple times watching it, and it feels like an unnecessary movie. It has a lot of elements that I like to it, Would I call it boring? Would I call it boring? Would I call it boring? You know, here's a question I need to ask myself. Did I think that Woody's character, was he in character for this movie? It almost feels like he was less confident, more stressed, more unsure. And I wonder if they did that so they could make Bo look stronger, which I think is kind of emotionally manipulative. So, do I find it mediocre or boring? Oh god, this is tough because honestly, there's moments to it that I appreciated and I liked. It's certainly a much more beautiful Toy Story movie. I don't think Buzz acted correctly. A lot of the characters didn't really act like themselves in this movie. So you know what? I really hate to do this, but this goes above Cars 2, but it was still boring. Because I kept finding myself dozing off to it. Man, I guess when it first came out, I had high hopes for it, but not really, because I'm not really that much of a sequel person. It didn't need to be. I thought watching it again, I would appreciate it a little bit more, and while there's stuff to it that I don't mind, I don't... I think it's my opinion of it dwindled on my more viewings of it. Onward. This is the unfortunate thing about Onward. I think there's a lot of things going against it. And I'm going to put this on... It's not a favorite, but I'm going to put it as, like, the top of the greats. No, not above Monsters, Inc. Yeah, above Inside Out, but below Monsters, Inc. So, Onward had a lot going against it. One is that it was the last movie that I actually saw before the pandemic in theaters. And, two, I think there were a lot of high hopes about it because it's another high-concept movie that Pixar is known for, or was known for, where it was just like, what if medieval times, or Dungeons and Dragons and fairy tale creatures, what if they all lived in a modern time? Which I think is a great concept. It's something that makes you think, like, what would this look like? I like the fact that there's cars in it. I love the van. I love Chris. Was it Chris Pratt who was Barley? I think that was him. I think he's great. But I think that there were a lot of expectations to it that people didn't really... I guess a lot of people thought there would be. Second off... third off, actually. I think that it's way too manly. And by manly, I mean, like, it's another father-son Pixar movie, which... I mean, I can understand. I mean, the mother is kind of like an afterthought, but she's honestly a very strong character in this movie, where it's like she really does like a lot. But she is also a side character, but it really is more about sons trying to reconnect with their father. And I think at this point, I feel like Pixar kind of like has overdone it with their misogyny, and that has been severely relevant, specifically now that we're at Onward, because this came after Toy Story 4, which people have already pre-established, but so now they want something new. They want like, hey, and already I remember people were talking like, can Pixar be a little bit more feminine? Like, can they, in terms of like, can we see more lady characters or lady like protagonists? And I think this movie would have been fucking fantastic if it were about sisters. I think that would have been great. But it's still about brothers, and it's great, and I love it. I loved Onward. Like, don't get me wrong. The time that it came out was not... It was badly timed. Unfortunately, this movie had a lot of things going against it. Just things that would happen, like, during the pandemic, and a lot of political stuff. Like, Lasseter was out by now, wasn't he? Like, I think, like, he was kicked out as soon as Toy Story 4 was done. Or was it... Yeah, because I think this was, like, the first movie without him, I think? I can't remember. It was probably way sooner. Probably way, way sooner than that. And I'm probably misremembering. But Lasseter was also a frickin' mess. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but Onward was a good movie. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was like, it had like a lot of heart to it. It had a lot of like great story elements to it. It was creative. It was funny. You know, I thought it was good. Soul. I'm going to put this above Monsters University. To this morning, okay, so I watched Soul this morning and I bawled like a fucking baby. And I'm not afraid to say that. I don't care about the political aspects about this movie. I think it's fucking brilliant. I think it's beautiful. I think it's basically about existential crisis. It's about enjoying life for what it is. It's about pursuing something that is bigger than yourself and what you think is good for yourself. And it was like the characters were basically learning off of each other. They were basically there to kind of reflect on their life. I appreciate it. Like, when I first watched it, the first half of the movie, where they're basically establishing the just the world and the realm, kind of confused me for a bit. But at the same time, it's like, now that I understand it and I watched it again, I think it's brilliant. It is on Inside Out levels, but it's like it's gone above and beyond that, where it's just, it feels so well designed and philosophical and creative. Soul is brilliant and it's beautiful, and the characters, like, there's so many moments that make me tear up in this movie that I just love. And I think more people should give it a chance. It's unfortunate that it came out during the pandemic, and also people were severely critical about it for things I don't really think they really understood. They didn't really understand what it was about, why the character was this way. It's like, I agree with them, and I honestly understand that there should be more animated movies that feature people of color and other ethnicities and genders. And but the movie still resonated well with me. I fucking loved it. I just like. Hopefully, the next movie they decide to make a little bit more diverse and not like tropey, I guess. Which honestly, I don't understand the trope argument because it makes sense. I don't know how else they would have gone about it without the whole body swapping concept. But still, like. It was beautiful in that how it was. I just yeah. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of Pete Docter. But Soul was good. I honestly. What was the other director's name on this? It's like they don't really trust people to do. Kemp Powers, yeah. It's like, come on, Pete Docter, take a seat. You don't have to be the director. Let Kemp Powers just take it over for yourself. But yeah, I honestly think it was very beautiful. And it made me cry. So many times. Luca! Let's talk about the greatest gay love story in animated film. Where would I put this? Because I do love it. This is like the freshest movie in my mind. Where would I put this? I think I'm gonna put this in between. No, you know what? I have to put this above Onward. I do love Onward, just a teeny bit more, I guess. Luca, I have to appreciate a little bit more because, first off, it's a lot of Pixar firsts in that I think they were going for another sort of style. And I love the character designs to it. I appreciate them a little bit more than I did when I first watched it. I loved this movie when it came out. I remember like singing its praises. I thought it was really, really cute. I thought it was very sweet. I understood the subtext of it. It is certainly all about, coming out. It is seriously. I wish it was more direct about it, but I always think about that quote from Family Guy. I was like, he was different enough, we took away that Wonder Woman outfit because he was different. He was different enough, But you watch that movie and you think about the gayness of it. It really, really shows. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't give a fuck. That's how I perceived it. And honestly, I applaud them for it. Because I think a lot of people love the gay fish movie. I'm teasing, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's a beautiful movie that felt cozy. It didn't really feel like it needed to be any bigger than it was, which I am really appreciative of. I like it when they can keep things a little bit more small. Keep it like just keep it in the town. I'm glad that they didn't like explore like, oh, let's go to the fish realm and see all of the fishmen in the Fishman City. And then, you know, that happens. It's like, no, I like this for what it is. It didn't need to be too much. Yeah, it was so cute. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about Luca. It's just, I just thought it was cute. It was really, really good. But yeah, I guess that's it. Until I see Turning Red, this is what my tier list is going to look like. So, yeah. What do you guys think? What do you guys have any like views on log in to save your tier list? Oh, you have to log in. Alright. Not gonna do that. Yeah, so yeah, what do you think of my tier list? I mean, these are clearly my favorites of all time. Coco is probably going to be up there for a long, long time until something like Ratatouille was up there for the longest time. And I really feel like unless there's a really big banger, Coco's going to stick with me for a while. Oh yeah, and I have like a new setup, by the way, for games. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I like it. I know that people think that it's a little too slanted. Maybe I could fix it up a little bit, but honestly, I like the way it is right now. I don't know. I was thinking of playing a game before I left, but I'm too tired. I need to get some sleep. So, yeah. Alright, guys. Take care, everyone. I'm gonna have a sleep. I'm glad that I finally could get this tier list out of the way. So, yeah. Maybe I should save this tier list to show off and let people get angry at me for no reason because they weren't here to listen to me explain why I like these movies. Or why I made this list the way it is. Alrighty, guys. Have a good night, and be well.